Welcome to the Building Business Relationship Show. I'm Matt Stone, and before we officially launch, we are exploring what matters most when it comes to relationships in business. These early episodes are about testing ideas, learning from fantastic guests, and hearing what you think belongs in the conversation. So listen in, share your thoughts, and help shape what this show becomes. And joining me today is my friend, colleague, and a great practitioner and person, Al D.
Matt, it's always great to chat with you and great to be here.
I need to talk about you for just a minute, so I know it might be uncomfortable to sit here and listen to me talk about you, but just hang out. I know you're a humble guy, but Al has no reason to be humble. He's got almost 40,000 followers on LinkedIn. He's the host of the amazing and relevant and always fresh podcast called The Edge of Work, where he's got thousands and thousands of downloads. I don't even know what your total numbers are, but he talks to some really great guests about the future of work, the edge of work, leadership, all things work and leadership. How's that for a description?
It feels like I need to hire you as my hype man, was what it sounds like, Matt.
Okay, this is actually just an interview to see if you'll hire me to be your hype man. I'll give you my rates afterward.
Okay, sounds good.
But in addition to that, companies hire Al to help develop their leaders. And he does a great job at it. He's also a featured keynote speaker at conferences around the country on topics like future of work and all things leadership. So, of course, I had to ask Al to spend a few minutes with me and talk about this show because I want him to be a part of it too. Thank you, Al.
Of course, Matt. I'm always happy to chat with you, and I always love hearing what you're up to and what you're doing. So, yeah, let's dive in.
All right. Well, listen, you already know the kind of the format of the show and everything. So we want to start right off, as we always do, with share with us a business relationship that's had a huge impact on you and your life.
So the first one that came to mind was probably one of the very first managers that I ever worked for, a woman by the name of Christy, someone who very much is a part of my life to this day. So I first started working for Christy early on in my tenure at Deloitte Consulting. And I think in many ways, the way that she led and the way that she managed is a model for how I have always tried to think about leadership, both for myself and now that I work in this space and I'm a student of this discipline. And she's a real life example of what that looks and feels like. And when I think about some of the bones of that relationship, the couple things that really come to mind, I think the first thing was that she really saw me for who I was and tried to really bring that out of me. I think it's easy sometimes to want to maybe direct someone to be someone or nudge them in a certain way, whereas for whatever reason, I still don't really know to this day, she saw something in me and just tried the best that she could to keep bringing that out of me and all the best parts, and certainly times of where I could improve upon or be better. But she really enabled what was already within me and just tried her best to bring that out. I think the second thing that she did, she taught me that a lot of your success in life is correlated to the amount of people that want you to succeed. And I think up until that point, I very much kind of viewed managers and leaders, very much with the power dynamic that is often in mind in terms of you kind of being under them as a subordinate or direct report, and them, kind of being over you. And while there's an element of that, which is true, what she kind of taught me, and something I try to, again, bake into what I do to this day and what I teach to people, is that there may, of course, be, in fact, a element to that relationship, which is true. That doesn't mean that you can't be supportive, that you can't be a collaborator, that you can't be a facilitator, that you can't be an enabler. And there's so many times when I feel like I was able to do more simply because I knew that she was on my side and that she was advocating and wanting to see me at my best. And then I think the last thing that I would say, and I'd still say this to her to this day because I talk to her all the time, the thing that she taught me about that relationship in particular is that it can work both ways. I know at various points in our relationship together, she has mentioned to me that in as much as I have thanked her for what she's done for me, she is grateful to me. And she has mentioned to me multiple times where she was even on her journey at the time to really figuring out what leadership was for her, and that I actually taught her a lot about what it meant to be a leader. And so to kind of treat that relationship as a two-way street, to be open and to be humble, to have belief in what you are capable of, but open that you can learn. And particularly at the time, you can learn from a 22-year-old who, just got hired in the firm. That relationship made a huge difference in my life, definitely in my career, and it's something that I'm grateful for to this day.
The greatest mentorships, the mentor gains at least as much as the mentee.
Yeah, yeah, and she really modeled that, and that was not something that I could have ever really expected, but it was really on her kind of again willingness to be open to it, and to her credit, her willingness to see that she could get something out of it as much as she was giving into it. It's something that I certainly personally am forever grateful for.
Let me just ask you one more question about that, and then we'll get to the other ones. But I'm wondering, why did you trust her with that kind of care for you? Does that make sense? What was it that she did that engendered trust?
It's a really good question, and there's a scenario. There's actually real life example of how this played out. But let me back up before I get to that example. When I started working for her, I had just gotten off a couple projects that I thought went well, but when I had gotten my reviews, I had gotten the feedback that essentially I did not perform nearly as well as I thought I had done. And when you talk about, kind of trust, very transparently, there wasn't a lot of trust in the kind of managerial relationships I had on some of those prior projects. So jumping into this new project, working for Christie, I definitely felt a little bit of apprehension and a little bit of uncertainty and concern as to how this was going to develop. But I was immediately kind of put at ease by that, just by her general kind of disposition. Matt, you will know this because you are a student of this stuff, but when it comes to Christy and her ability to build trust, she found a way to lead with affective trust and really went out of her way, whether she was doing it intentionally or unintentionally, to know me, to let me know that in addition to the obvious pieces of performance and doing your job, that she cared about me and that she was interested in getting to know me and that she wanted me to get to know her, and all of those elements of affective trust that are really critical to any kind of relationship. The cognitive trust came in time, but she really did a good job, again, unintentionally or intentionally, of laying that foundation. So what ended up happening, and really what accelerated a lot of things, was because of what she had done, as we had started working together a little bit more, I did feel that sense of trust coming. And one day we had like your typical career development conversation and check-in. Because of that trust she built, I just had an honest conversation with her, and I said, look, I had a couple projects where I thought I did well, and I got the reviews that I didn't do as well. I thought I knew what it took to be successful here, but I'm not really sure that I do. Would you mind sharing with me how I might be able to navigate through this, and how I should be thinking about my career, knowing that I kind of am struggling with this? And she was very open and transparent, and also empathetic. And she had kind of said, hey, like, you're still learning. This doesn't come naturally. Work is different than the school environment that you came in. And she made a promise to me, which was, if you take ownership of this, I will meet you where you are, and I will teach you the best to my abilities to help you kind of learn how to manage your career. And that really accelerated a lot of things. But that conversation only happened because of the question that you asked, which was, what trust was there in the first place? Well, there was a whole slew of affective trust that she had laid the foundation for, which enabled me to even raise the question to begin with, which then in turn sparked the conversation and everything else that would come next.
So when you're working with leaders now, or even when you're doing your keynote, where does this relationship come up for you the most often? Maybe you don't expressly talk about it, but it triggers that experience. What kinds of scenarios trigger that?
It comes up. It comes up in every scenario. I can't. It would be harder for me to find a scenario where it doesn't come up in. But let's just kind of take a few off the top. The first one would be, I do work with a lot of organizations, as well as I talk a lot in keynotes around leading through change, leading during change and leadership of some kind, right? And so much of what often is missing during those times is that sense of safety and security and certainty that we as humans often crave. And one of the best things that a leader can do in those moments, if they care about the success of the change as well as their people, is to find ways to build that trust, to let people know that you have their backs, to the degree that you can provide some clarity, to be able to provide that clarity. So this comes up all the time there. It comes up all the time in the conversations around, how do I do this AI thing, or how do we lead AI adoption, or how do we get our employees to start working with AI to deliver innovation or productivity or whatever it is. a lot of the challenges I think that I'm seeing, at least or observing, really in some ways come back to incentive alignment, right? And how do I know as an employee that this is actually going to benefit me or not? And your ability as a leader to convey that, both in terms of your interactions as well as the processes and workflows and programs you put in place, that's all built on trust, right? And then finally, I think it's probably heightened over the past 5 years, but probably has been decades in the making, and you know this from the work that you do, is just the ability to connect to ability to connect or to facilitate connection or to create connection, whether that's one-to-one or in small groups or whatever it is. I mean, fundamentally, a leader is someone who drives a bunch of people towards a collective goal, and being able to kind of engender that trust and connection in a one-to-one way, into one-to-many way, or to encourage that to your people. That's all what it's about. So again, it would be harder to find a way to not talk about this in some kind of capacity.
Yeah. I love how you put it too. The AI things, it's why I'm starting this show, because I think right now we need to invest in AI. And the only way we're going to make that work highly effectively is investing in human trust as well at the same time. To me, that's like it's like you got to mix one with the other in order to get the best benefit out of it. Because if you neglect the human trust part of it, you're not going to be able to maximize its benefit.
Yeah, no, I 100%. And I think in general, I tend to be cautious about overextensions of anything. And so I think a lot of times a good starting place is a balance, or looking at things on a spectrum and trying to find ways to incorporate everything that's there. But, I also just, what are we all doing this for, right? Like, if you just take it from the top, right? I think, based off of my rudimentary understanding of history and business and economics, part of the reason why business and commerce exists is because it connects people together. Because, Matt, you have something that I don't have, and Jamel has one thing and Tasha has another, and we all kind of need to come together because I need something that Tasha has and Matt needs something that Jamel needs, and that's how commerce exists, right? And so the fundamental unit of business, which you're all here for, it, to a certain degree, is that ability to be connected to survive. And that fundamental unit of connection a lot of times is that trust. And how do we find ways to do that? And so for me, I don't know, again, I'm not an economist, I'm not a historian, but from my understanding, a lot of this comes back to that.
100%. Talking about the topics, because one of my missions, one of my goals for these pre-lunch conversations is to get really smart people to help me workshop what topics that we really need to explore in the show. And since you have a podcast called The Edge of Work, okay, I expect the very edge of thinking. Okay, I'm kind of loading it up there a little bit. But Al, what is the topic that you think isn't discussed enough or in the right way enough, if that makes sense? My grammar's all over the place. That we should go into more, that would add the most value to the conversation?
One of the things that I often think about is, I think I mentioned it earlier, is what is this all for? And, there's innovation for the sake of innovation. There's technology advancements for the sake of technology advancements. And that's all well and good. And the innovation won't stop. The technology won't stop. But I think there's got to be more and better and more diverse kinds of conversations about what do we actually want out of all of this, right? And maybe some more inclusion in that conversation. I think that's the first thing that comes to mind, particularly as it relates to AI, which is, I feel like, the topic du jour, in terms of what do we actually want this for, right? And so that's honestly the first thing that comes to mind. The second thing that comes to mind is this idea around what can we learn from history? There's that famous quote: "History doesn't always repeat itself, but it often rhymes."
It rhymes, yeah.
And so I look at and this is a very U.S.-minded perspective, but it's probably applicable to parts of the rest of the world. But I look at the just general kind of business and macroeconomic environment in the U.S. right now, and to a certain degree, you could argue that this does feel unprecedented, but I do think there are some analogies in history that could really help us really learn in these moments about either what could happen or what has happened in the past, and what kind of implications does that have for us as individuals and leaders about how we can move through these circumstances. I just started reading Andrew Ross Sorkin's new book, 1929, which kind of covers like the crash of 1929, but certainly the Great Recession in 2007, 2008. I recently spent some time talking with a senior HR, or at the time then a senior HR leader, and he was kind of walking me through what actually happened when they had to do a huge kind of exercise around layoffs in the workforce and just the thought process that went into it and how much they didn't know and how challenging it was. And I thought to myself, oh, there might be some perils in there that might be helpful to kind of think about and consider, considering where we are at this time. So learning from history is another one. And then perhaps the last one in particular that I really care about is, what does this all mean for the average professional? I do feel like there is a lot of conversation right now about what we need to do for organizations, but what about the average professional who's trying to navigate during these times? What's the prescription for them? What's the roadmap for them in an actual, real, and concrete way, not in a platitude-y or thought leadership-y kind of way, but like in an actual, real, and concrete kind of way. I could probably talk about a whole bunch of other things, but those are the three things I was trying to think about. What's not being talked about that should. I feel like those are three good ones to start with.
Such a great answer. And now you're on the hook because we're going to do all those topics and you're coming back for it. Okay.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you. Seriously, from the bottom of my heart. Your answers, and I've said this to you in other contexts, this isn't just for the camera. Like, you're just one of the most thoughtful and articulate people I know. You give thoughtful answers to things that are also structured in a way that makes them very easy to understand. And I just think you bring that practicality to the brain. A very smart, nuanced way of thinking, but put in a practical way. And frankly, to your third point about what we should be discussing, I think that really resonates with me. What does the average worker do with this? What does this mean in plain language? So I want to explore that too. What excites you most about what you know so far about what this show is going to be?
One, that you're involved. So there's that. But
thank you.
And as an extension of that, the things that you care about are things that I think people want, but don't always understand how to bring to life for themselves in terms of connection, in terms of the human element, in terms of what we talked about of trust, right? Selfishly, like part of the reason why I feel like I've been successful in terms of talking about these things is that I've found ways to try to make them land for people who maybe have a harder time putting these things into action. And so I do think they not just come at a critical time, but they also come for a population of individuals who do want these things, to talk about these things, or want guidance around these things, or want to have conversations around these things. And so that to me is, what is exciting. And then obviously I think, as someone who I consider to be a friend, for you, like this is a chance for you to kind of align some of the things you care deeply about and to bring them into the world in a professional setting in a way that is advantageous for others as well as it is for you. And so just whenever there's that alignment between kind of values and outcomes, that's always a win. So those are a couple of reasons why I'm excited.
All right, prepare your writer agreement. If you need green M&Ms or whatever it is you need for the green room, we'll make sure you get what you need. Those chocolate marshmallows that you really like, that you have to have or you can't appear on camera.
I'm a peanut butter M&M guy. So if as long as those green ones are peanut butter, then we're golden.
M&Ms, yes, those are absolutely ridiculously good. Okay, rapid fire questions. Do you have time to get through these?
Yeah, I do.
What's your favorite breakfast food?
Hash brown casserole.
Least favorite breakfast food?
There is no least favorite. Breakfast is my favorite meal. There's no, you can't lose.
Okay. Something you absolutely must do before the end of your life. The ultimate bucket list item.
I want to do a vacation with all of my family and friends in Hawaii. Just bring everyone on an island, bring them all there, hang out with them. Yeah.
Beautiful. Love it. Okay. What's the most overused word or phrase in business?
So it'd be easy to kind of pick on like the jargony stuff, like leverage or synergy or anything like that. I think for the world of work that I'm in, I think the word I'm going to pick is engagement. Well, I'm going to go with that one. I think we just use it so much that sometimes I don't know what exactly it means.
Right. The meaning gets just completely. Yeah. It's like empathy and other words in different contexts. We don't even know what we're talking about. Yeah. Okay. How about what's an underused word or phrase, or one you'd like to see more prevalent or discussed?
We. W-E. We.
Okay.
Do a lot of I's, but I think we could be a word we try to figure out how to do more of.
I'll put you in contact with WeWork.
He's here all year,
I'm
folks.
here. No, I'm actually half serious because at WeWork they'll throw these events, and half the time it's the
Yes.
individual
Yeah.
companies, who
Yeah.
come to the event, but
Yeah.
no one actually cross pollinates.
Right. I
It's
know.
hard to get
Yeah.
people to do it. And, you really have to do more than put
Oh,
cupcakes
I know.
out. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Anyway, I digress. What's the best advice for a young entrepreneur who's going through their first big failure, or what feels like a big failure?
I would say that there has been someone who, whatever it is you are dealing, whatever failure it is, someone else has gone through the exact same thing. Find who they are and spend time talking with them and listening to them. And I think it will help as you kind of process through it and identify how you want to move forward.
It'd be hard to top that with better advice. Yeah, that really resonates with me. And finally, what are you most curious about right now?
I am very curious about how infants and toddlers develop, selfishly because I have a 10-month-old. And knowing what I know just about some of the fundamentals of learning and just pedagogy and things, I know some of this stuff and could see it happening in real time. But I would love to dig in more as I think about how my wife and I kind of create an environment for my son where he does feel like he can lean into all that curiosity that he has and that he can explore and that he can develop all of those things that will make him the incredible human being that he already is into an even more incredible human being. So
Set him on a trajectory to reach his full potential. Yeah, that's beautiful. I love the way you put that. He already is to become more fully who he already is. I mean, that's really it.
Yes.
Okay, Al, if someone's watching this and they're like, man, I have got to get me some of that Al D, how would they get in contact with you in the way that would work the best?
Probably best way is to find me on LinkedIn. First name is AL, last name is DEA. I think I'm the only one, so you'll know it's me. But yeah, thank you for asking.
And I'll put your LinkedIn link if you'd like. I'll put it in the show notes, and we've referenced it here. So do follow Al. He's also one of the most disciplined content creators in this space in terms of sending out his weekly newsletter, and he's always synthesizing value-added data. So he really is an incredible mind and resource. And thank you for being so generous with your time today.
Always a pleasure, Matt.
So thank you for listening and watching the Building Business Relationship Show. This pre-launch phase is all about discovery. So if something sparked your interest, we'd love to hear from you. Please do share your thoughts, ideas, or guest suggestions and help us shape the conversations to come. To do that, the easiest way would be to go to mattstone.co. That's MATTSTONE.co. Click on the Contact Us button and send a message through that. Or you can leave a message on social media. That's fine too. And of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel so you'll be the first to know when new content drops. And of course, when the show officially launches in 2026. Thanks again for listening or watching, and we'll see you on the next one.